listening to the Elsewhere Podcast with Kat.
Hey guys, welcome to the Elsewhere Podcast, and I hope you guys are ready for this one because talking to Black Pegasus was an amazing experience, and I realized after the fact that we didn't do an intro. Usually I'm like, here's the intro and here we go. We didn't even do that. We just skipped straight over. So here it is. Welcome to the Elsewhere Podcast, Elsewhere Unscripted, where we have normal conversations with not so normal people. What is normal anyway? Where else would you be? All of the things. I hope that you are ready for this and that you enjoy it. And like I said, check the description below. And make sure that you go check out Black Pegasus. He's an amazing person. As well as if you like what you see, please feel free to drop a like. And if you want to come back, subscribe. Drop comments, do all the things. You can do it now, you can do it later. I don't care. Anyway, here we go. Let's just go with the tried and true Yeti. It's what I started on. It's the same one. So.
Okay, nice. How long have you been working at this type of stuff?
Oh, I started... It's funny because it's not about me, it's about you, but I started 3 years ago.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so my community, I started the community in Discord, and then they kept pushing me to do podcasting and stuff after conversations that I'd have in voice chat. Because apparently I take over voice chats. That's a thing. I'll find a subject and then I'll go on rants about it, and they're like, you need to do a podcast. So I started with the co-host Skulls in January 2022, I think.
Okay.
So it's been 2.5 years, and then he started to work on his music locally. He does videography in Connecticut, and
okay.
He got in with a collective kind of there in his hometown, where he does, it's culture for change or culture for a change or something like that. So they have the local arts and everything. They're trying to bring it back to Torrington. So he stepped away and I started doing it myself, getting on camera. I've had 170 interviews.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Damn, that's a gang of interviews.
Yeah. Well, when I say that I know a lot of people, I know a lot of people in the YouTube and independent artist space, in my little world. I know a lot of them.
Yeah, got you. Cool.
I was actually super excited for this one specifically because not only do I consider you a really, what's the word? I don't want to say respectable because that sounds stupid, but I do respect you and the way that you approach your content. And plus my mom likes you. She's super excited.
Oh, really? That's tight. Hey,
yeah.
Mom, we made it. What's up? That
She's
used to be a thing. It's so sad. When me growing up, anytime a football player got a touchdown, anytime a basketball player did a great slam dunk, they looked at the camera and said, "Hi, Mom." That was a thing. That was a thing. Legitimately.
It's an absolute thing.
In my lifetime. It's not a thing anymore. I don't know why. Anyways, hi, Mom. Okay.
I'm totally going to show her that. If I have to clip it up and send it to her as a short, I will. No,
hey, let's get it.
I love my mom. She's my one family member that I still have aside from my kids. So it's a big deal. And she's very, I love you, Mom. She's particular.
Okay.
Right. So she likes certain things and she doesn't like other things. People that do certain things act a certain way. She feels like certain language is unnecessary and subject matter and things like that. And she loves when people you can touch on it, but don't put it right here.
Yeah, got you.
So she appreciates that. But anyway, I told her I was going to talk to you, and she's like, "Oh, I'm going to watch that one." I'm like, Mom approved.
Well, we're here.
But no, it's not just the fact that my mom likes you. It's the fact that I didn't follow your career back in the early 2000s. I only went back and listened in the last maybe year and a half or so.
Okay.
Listened to some of your music because I was curious, and obviously that's what I do is I kind of stalk people. Not stalk people. I just I want to know. I'm curious.
Yeah.
And so, one of the main things that I was hoping you would talk to me about is just kind of like, where's that line between like your music and like your content creating? I know AR hates when I call content creators, so I use it often now, just as a dig. But at you, that's for you, AR, content creator.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's actually interesting trying to answer that question because I don't know if I've really had that question before and answering it. But I this is what I actually think. The first thing, my music is my superpower, right? So my content is Clark Kent. My music would be my Superman, right? So like you're getting more of a real version of me, an authentic version of me. Like you will never in your life, barely ever probably hear me like cry on a song or like da 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 da. Like it's just not the part of me that I put out there that much. Like there's moments where I make emotional music, but it's very rare. But on the reactions, if something's emotional and it hits me, you're going to see a tear. You're going to hear me talk about my mom, my dad, my family, my this, that. So I would say my content in the sense of like YouTube reactions or commentary, that's my Clark Kent. And my music is my superpower. It's where I can be whoever I want to be, or it's the magnified version of me, right? Like, you know, rappers tend to be somewhat, I don't want to, maybe it's not hyperbolic, but they always exaggerate, right? In the music, I try to keep it real, but there are parts that are the exaggeration because that's your superhero, that's your superpower, that's your rock star, you know? So I think that's a pretty good example of my music versus my content. And I do have moments where I'm a pretty charismatic person on camera, typically, you know, depends on what my mood is, but that's still me being pretty authentically me. And I think the music is like this, maybe an exaggerated version of me where I come out of my shell even more, but there's like, it's like I highlight the confidence, you know, maybe the arrogance, maybe the this or that, or even maybe the emotion just a little bit more than I might do creating content. But, you know, I try to walk a balance, pretty balanced, so I don't think it's that far of a stretch. But if I made an example, I think that's what the example would be.
I mean, to me, that completely makes sense. See, I think it's more authentic to say that than it is for a lot of the different people that are like, I rap as me and only me, and that's who I am. And it's like, I mean, in and of...
Yeah. I keep it real. My gimmick is I'm so real. I'm so damn real that I'm real.
Like, but then you see, I guess what I'm saying is you see the waters muddied both directions, right? So you see and I'm going to say this in a weird way. So you see like the rap persona that trickles into the real life. So they're basically twisting their real life to mimic their art or vice versa. But the thing is for me is like, if you're writing a poem and it's supposed to be a haiku, which I don't even know what a haiku is technically. I don't know like the setup of it, but whatever. I'm not a poet person, but you have a specific structure you have to follow. It's supposed to kind of sound like this. If you're going on stage to do slam poetry, you're not going to sit there and be all fuzzy and sweet, right? So you're putting that into your art and you're performing. To me, the moment you switch on a performance side of yourself, you are stepping away from the fully real part of yourself. You know, you can't go up there and just talk your songs. I mean, you could. Some people do. But you know what I mean? You're literally performing.
Yeah, and there's certain people who are raised in theater who it might be an authentic part of them, but there's going to be a small outlier or, you know, and that's just what I honestly think. I think it's why people get after Drake, right? You know, coming from Degrassi, but then it's like, oh, I'm this hard, da da da. And you know, this is a controversial take that I'm about to say, but it's just the truth, and I'm a huge fan. But like Tupac, you know, when you see some of his old interviews, and I think he went to Juilliard, whatever, it was like some theater art type of schooling, but then you get the thug life later. People do change, but also there is a performance there, and people don't, you know, it's just like I saw this thing with Kevin Spacey on Piers Morgan, and he started crying about, you know, to not get your channel in trouble, the Jeffrey Airplane Island guy. They start talking about that, right? And he starts crying, and it's just like, bro, you're Kevin Spacey. Like, I know this is a performance. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you've made House of Cards. Like, you're a really good actor, but you've done some weird stuff, bro. And you got to be held accountable. And you crying on TV I don't really care, especially because you're an actor, you know? And I just try to keep it a buck, you know. When I do my reactions, I treat my camera like a diary, and I'm just like talking into the camera, and it's like a portal to the world. Like, I just know there's more people out there, and so that's how I treat my camera. Versus when I'm writing a rap song, I'm just like, oh yeah, we about to get it. Like, I'm this, I'm that, like whatever. It just depends on the mood, and it's also because it's art. You know, I'm not, you know, me personally, I've never went out of bounds. I never had like my Slim Shady was kind of, I had this YMP thing going on where it's kind of,
I was about to mention that.
Yeah. But I never sold crack. I was never killing people on my records, you know. So
it was like
I tried to keep it in the realm. Yes. So, yeah, that's just kind of, you know, that's my thing. But everyone's different, right? I don't expect everyone to follow what I do or whatever. And, you know, I think the thing you were touching on is that some artists get lost in their persona and become that, and it can become their downfall. Like, when you can't look at the man in the mirror and recognize who you truly are, people, you know, lose it to addiction, to violence, to a bunch of stuff. But that's also when people try to walk into their persona and live that. I think Eminem's a great example. You know, the Slim Shady, the Eminem, he's crazy as hell. But at the same time, raised, 3 daughters, one just crossed the aisle, graduated with honors. It's pretty obvious there's something different going on in his personal life than I'm Jim Beam, and then I R-worded the women's swim team. You're like, what? You know what I mean? There's huge difference. So, you know.
I just think that, of course, I don't know. I'm not an artist. Like, so that is an entire realm that I technically have no right to speak on. I would just, from an outside perspective, would say that it makes sense to me, because even from, no matter how small or big your channel is, or doing streaming or working with people that do, you learn that there has to be a line between your online persona, your art persona, your public persona, and yourself. You have to keep something off the table that's just for you, your family, your close people. Like, you have to kind of, I know a lot of people like to, I put everything out there. And it's like, and then you wonder why people tear your world apart, because you put every little nod and every sneeze and every, you know, breakup and everything all over for people who nowadays it's the status quo to hate on everything and everyone. Like, you could literally say, like, I'm drinking Pepsi. Oh, you're psycho. Pepsi's nasty. I'm like,
With this conversation, it is interesting. I do think there's outliers in art, and I do think there are people who might absolutely, totally engulf the art in a sense, and a lot of those people will come off as crazy, insane, or you know, but there's this like weird genius to it, and a lot of those artists we've lost early, and it's almost because they've embodied this persona, or that's what they really were, and trying to keep up with those with what they're singing about or creating. You know, sometimes you lose the iconic ones early because they are that, you know. So it's an interesting thing. Again, it just goes to the human experience. We're all human. So even how you're like, well, I don't feel like I have the right to talk on this because I'm not an artist. Yeah, maybe, but you are human, and we all have, like, you know, you might be creating art in a different way, and that's the thing. You might not be making music, but even, you know, doing what you were talking about earlier on Discord, that's a form of art. Like, there's different things, and so I think you're starting to maybe touch on the fact that you're creating something. And I think dabbling with that also helps you come up with these questions or be able to see it from a different way. And as you come into your own right with creation and stuff like that, like, I think we're all artists in our own way, and we just forget about it. Like, even the way we raise our children is an art. You know what I mean? So I always take it like that. So I just think because music is the universal language. So the reason you're able to identify with it is because it's speaking to you, even though you might not be able to create it at the level of some of these higher level musicians. And that goes for me as well. It's still something that speaks to you. So it's more about the human experience than anything. And it's, that's how I always look at art, because like there's some stuff that I think is whack. And people are like, this is actually the greatest art of a century or a generation. I'm like, I'm so surface level. I'm like, well, I just like these flowers on this picture, bro. They're like, but this is Van Gogh. And I'm just like, yo, people like different stuff. So I try to stay open-minded in that sense.
I mean, personally speaking, from my take on things, I think if there's anything that I've learned, it's how to, with lots of words, articulate one thing that is actually, I believe, the most important for me and what I do and when I talk to people and everything. It's an art form to agree to disagree respectfully, to not walk into a conversation with expectations of walking out of an echo chamber. Like, to know going in that there might be things you don't know, things that you don't agree with, or things that you've never heard, and to be okay with that and not feel the need to, pound your input and your thought process and your perspective into somebody else, and then walk away respectfully, even if it's like, I'm pro so-and-so, no, I'm pro so-and-so, and then you're like, ah! And then you walk away and you're like, you're so cool.
Yeah,
yeah. It's not easy, but I just feel like it's just missing. And I don't talk politics, I don't talk religion, I don't talk all that, because people are so not able to embrace respect when it comes to something that they've decided that they're right about. They say they respect, but in the moment, they just don't.
Yeah, every now and then it slips out of my vocab that, like, I like Trump. I'm pretty vocal that I am not a Trumper. I'm not a Trump supporter. I like the guy. He's just funny to me. I'm not going to get in a political rant, but I'm going to say it because I know people are so scared to say it, and I'm just not. I'm just like, nah, he's cool, man, like, whatever. But I don't say it. If you notice, I never say it in my reactions, But people who really start to follow me and get on some fanatic stuff, they start to see it, and you'll see them post on Twitter, I love Black Pegasus, but I hate his politics. And those people I love the most because, one, they don't know my politics because I don't put it out there like that, because I have many criticisms of Trump. That's the thing. Right. But it's just me not willing to disavow that he's some evil, blah, blah, blah. People sometimes get triggered. And I like the fact that I have friends who will be like supporting this, that, and the other. And I'm like, bro, this is so cringe. But at the same time, I'm like, you're my homie. And the cool thing, who got me to this place? And this is very strange, but I'm saying it right now. Two people kind of helped me get here. Because in 2020, I went dark, you guys. Like, it was rough time because, like, my livelihood was stolen. At that time, I wasn't creating content. I threw concerts for a living. Right. And I have a family to feed, and that was taken. And people and I have other stances that it is what it is, right? So that time was very hard and dark for me because I couldn't even tour because I'm not Jacksinated. I don't know whatever the word is, but I couldn't tour. So a lot of things were stripped from me, and I got very triggered, very dark. And you know who helped pull me out of that? Harry Mack and Ren. And Ren would listen to the opposite, because I always felt like Ren kind of leans left. But he would listen, and then he did an interview with us, and we had a conversation. I'm like, oh, he's one of the people who was like, yo, I want both people to have a conversation regardless of what I think. That was really cool. And then Harry Mack, just his energy of just being accepting of everyone. He knows he has Trump supporters. He knows he has Biden supporters. Harry Mack leans left, but he doesn't ostracize people, and that made me wake up. And then what it made me even wake up to more as I kept kind of getting into the political space, I was like, oh, I kind of like Trump, but this is fake. Like
Yeah.
shit Trump is saying is fake, and so is this guy. And there's a lot of fake in politics that it's politics. And I had to wake up from just being like, okay, like I'm open to say I like this guy, but I don't agree with this. I do agree with that. And it's just that simple, and not having, like, I try to put God first and family. So, I've noticed a lot of people will put their president or this, that, and the other first, and it becomes a worship thing. And I think that's dangerous, and I think people just need to wake up to that. But yeah, man, like you start waking up to all these things, and it takes time, because 2020, it changed me as a man fundamentally. Like, I was already kind of awake and already a little bit of a tinfoil person, just a little bit. But the 2020 took me to a whole new place, and it took me a long time to get back. Like, it's 2024, and I'm just getting back to center and being more balanced in my thinking, the way I, everything isn't the end of the world, because we got kids to raise. Like, if everything's the end of the world, I got problems,
No,
So.
exactly. I mean, I completely understand. I didn't know that about Rin. Like, on the surface level, I would assume that he leans super far left. I don't,
Yep.
It just is a thing. I just assume that. And to know that somebody takes the time and says, look, I think that both sides should have a conversation. That's that whole agree to disagree respectfully type conversation, because telling where you come from, where your perspective is being brought from mentally and your experience wise and all of those things is more, that knowledge is more important than what your conclusion is. So
Yeah.
like, if someone says, I like Michael Keaton as president, and then you say, okay, well, here's why, because if you say his name 3 times, he shows up. And then you're like, okay, well, your perspective comes from this, like, and you can approach what they say in a way that makes more sense. So like, okay, I'm not going to like co-sign with that, because for me, that's not something that matters to me, my family, and all of that. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a really crazy extreme, but I'm just saying. I mean, he's staring at me, so.
Yeah. You're like, hey, let's give him a shout out. Yeah, with the Ren thing, I thought it was interesting because I didn't really know until we did the interview with him. And I was like, oh, he is like, so for example, you can tell he leans left, and he talks about the collective, which sometimes would lead down to socialism or communism. But when I brought up that capitalism births innovation, he agreed, and he actually started explaining, like, see, conservative is to conserve traditions and da-da-da, and this, and he understands it, and you can tell as he's getting older. I think as anyone gets older, and especially when they have children, you change. Because I would actually go ahead and say I was a leftist in my 20s. Like, that's just what I was, I didn't understand the beliefs that I had. I didn't understand how they affect certain things. And as I mature and I'm a father, also life experience, right? I've always been an athlete at some capacity. Whenever I compete, there's winners and losers. And when you start understanding, like, this is like things that reoccur in life in general, whether it's in nature and human nature, like there's all these different things, and then just trying to balance it as we see more abundance in the world. So like, I'm not like some hardcore like capitalist, da-da-da-da. I believe in capitalism. I like capitalism. I benefited from it. But at the same time, I see the dangers in the sense of when certain people, it's not really capitalism, it's greed. It's once you win, because so markets are competing, someone wins. Once those people win, they get greedy, and then they try to rig capitalism so they just keep winning. That's where it's like we start seeing the funkiness. But capitalism's dope, and you see it in nature, but you also see the collective in nature. So there's a bunch of things, and I just think like the reoccurring thing in nature and science and all these different things is typically balance. So if we can all try to find balance in that center point, I think we're all going to be fine. But if we don't, like right now, the pendulum's swinging very hard to this side, and then it's going to swing right when it gets in the middle. We see this like, oh, we're all chilling. Then it starts going to this side. And so that's just my take. Like, it's kind of cliche, but if we can try to get to a balance point, things will be fine. And that's why I just say I try to speak my mind. I lose a lot of followers every now and then when I post like a political thing, like certain views I have with, like, let's say guns is the one that really triggers my audience. because I'm a 2A guy. I conceal carry. I have my concealed carry license, and people don't really know that about me. But I'm about self-defense. And in martial arts, I learned the hard way. I weigh 150, 160 pounds. Everyone who's bigger than me starts to mess me up at a certain level. Like
Right.
I'm, let's say, a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, but a white belt who's been doing wrestling, or a blue belt who kind of has a good base, if you weigh 250 pounds, hey, I'm going to have some problems with you. So it's like, yo, guns are literally the great equalizer for smaller people, for women, for kids. It's like, this is how you could legitimately protect yourself against, the Vikings, the gorillas, the whatever's out there to get you. And but I have respect for it. And I think people are in this place where they think, I'm going on a tangent. Sorry, I'm not trying to be on a gun tangent right now. But people think you got to look at things for what they are, right? A hammer can be a tool to build a house or destroy something, right? And that's how I look at everything. Money, guns. Yeah, exactly.
I just
So
happen to have one.
Yeah, I freaked out. I kind of freaked out because one day I posted that because they're doing the crazy gun ban in Colorado, and I was just like, hey man, if you guys want to sign this whatever those things are, I forget.
Petition?
I'm having brain. Yeah, petition, or go speak at the Capitol. Here's the date. Da da da. And people are like, I'm so disappointed in you, Black Pegasus. I'm like, what? But then again, it's also because it's not like when you got people following you all over the world, they don't understand American culture.
Yes.
They also don't understand the extremities here. Like, there's a lot of guns here. Like, in my opinion, it's probably better for you to have one and know how to use it than not have one, just because of a safety measure of how many other people have them, including criminals, including this, that, and the other. So, yeah, anyways, tangent over. But, like, I noticed that with people. They get a little upset with my views on certain things. And I'm just like, it's cool. Like, I don't do a political channel, so I don't go off the rails. But there are moments where I'm like, hey, I built this platform, and to use it for in what I would think is good, sometimes you need to speak up on certain issues and topics when they arise, if they're important to you. So every now and then I do that.
One thing I was going to say is that all of this is kind of like, you were saying about marketing and winning. It's kind of like it's the algorithm, right? So, for example, the YouTube algorithm. You hit the algorithm and you start getting the views, and then your next video starts getting the views, and then your next video starts getting the views, and then maybe you do another video and it starts to slide, and people go, oh, and they go back to that same thing, and people get trapped into this, where they're trying to manipulate their content in order to hit those views, and it sucks because then it takes away from being authentic and doing what you want, and we're doing what the algorithm wants, and I hate that. Yeah. And it's sad because who do you point a finger at? Do you point it at somewhere like YouTube or the platform? Do you point it at people who are like, I mean, let's be real. Most of the people that are doing most of the big wave clicking on things that we know none of us can really understand why they're being clicked on is, teenagers and, at most 25, like if that at all. It's the kids, they're the ones that are clicking on all the things and making things move. And then, like, it's the same as how people latch on to negativity. They latch on to, when I can't make music, I'm going to diss people because I need attention. I'm going to use your attention and, that kind of stuff. And it just sucks because it's the same concept in this space as it is out there. Yeah. Like, it's literally the same thing. Oh, this marketing strategy is winning. It's a problem, but it's still winning. So let's just go with that.
Yeah. It's interesting because with the algorithm, for example, I was on vacation in Hawaii a few months ago, and, we come back, and a few months later, we have my daughter, and I just wasn't in the mood to cover all the beef. I was covering some of the stuff. Like, I think Knox had the stuff with Benzino. Upchurch was going at Tom. And, I covered that. And when I got home, I was just like, I'm done. And because, like, I like, for example, Flawedzilla. And I think he had a a diss with Upchurch, and it's just like I just stopped covering stuff, and people that might not even, most people did notice, but I didn't cover the Kendrick and Drake beef. I did like the last Drake song just because people kept saying stuff, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch it, so I'm just gonna record and watch it, but I wasn't like fully invested, and I'm not taking a shot at people who covered it because that's what we do, but I noticed that gossip and negativity, it blows things up, and people love that. And I personally was, watching Brooks and Dunn and Led Zeppelin, and that's just where I went because I personally was just where I'm at in my life. I just didn't want to deal with or talk about men gossiping or rumors, because to me a lot of these diss tracks are just them gossiping back and forth, like your girl did this, my girl did that, we're in the streets, you're not, ah ha ha. Like I'm just like, that's just gossip to me, and I just don't care. Like if it was just a little bit of the gossip and more like these crazy functional techniques with the words where I'm like Coast Contra, like where I'm like, oh my God, they said this. That's when I'm like, okay, I get fully invested, and I'm just human. So like I go back and forth. Sometimes I like the drama, but just right now where I'm at in life, it didn't coincide. And luckily I did something a little different, and I've kind of been getting rewarded by the algorithm, which I notice I have an older audience and they like different stuff. So, right, I might not get the reward of going viral because the youth aren't on my channel currently, but I don't know, man. I've just been having fun, and that's been really good. But yeah, sometimes I found myself chasing the algorithm in my early come up, trying to understand it. Now that I understand it a little bit more, I feed it, but I'm also trying to do what I said, balance it out and do things that I enjoy, and balance it, So it's definitely a dance, and the algorithm is the matrix, and it's weird. Like it is weird. Like I don't have an answer for that one.
Well, one thing that I like to, and I refer to this quite often because it's so important to me as who I am and my channel and this podcast in and of itself, is that I haven't even hit 1,000 subscribers, but I'm cool with that because the ones I do have show up every single time.
Nice.
I know that they're consistently, my numbers are probably better than your numbers just because of the ratio, right? Of how many subscribers I have versus active versus clicking every single time, returning and all that stuff. So, I mean, I'm not mad about it. And it allows me to do whatever I want and enjoy it without feeling like I have to follow some kind of a script or narrative or, like I don't have to. And I also don't have to do okay, so on the evening of, November 85th, you were what? Like, I don't have to interview yes, no questions. I don't have to do any of that. I can have an organic conversation and offer the opportunity for people to kind of get to know some of the content creators, artists, authors, whoever I happen to be talking to. And I know that the people that really, really mess with it are going to click every time. And so I'm lucky. I don't want to go viral because I'm scared that would change everything, right?
Yeah, it's weird because I miss that feeling. So there's pros and cons to both. And I miss that feeling in the sense. So where I'm at on YouTube, I started making, a nice revenue stream. And it's continued to grow because of certain things I do and strategies I have. And it got to the point where it's basically YouTube is the reason my wife quit her day job, and now she's able to fully, because she's always wanted to be like in the position of housewife where it's just focus on the kids, etc. Right. And now because of YouTube, she's there. But that's the funny thing is like I try to be as authentic as possible, but there is a worry that hey, if I don't do this or if I don't do this, like I can't take a legitimately take months off or a week off or like this, that, and the other. And so even with the reaction channel, I can't do certain things that I'm passionate about. Like I was doing these reactions to street beefs where they're like these backyard MMA fights. And I would just throw that in the mix of my, I'd throw that in the mix of my reactions. But I was like, oh, this is hurting the channel. You could start to see it. And so now I can't do something that I'm passionate about on my own channel because now it affects the channel, which in turn affects the revenue stream, which then in turn affects my family. So, but this is the cool thing. I'm starting a couple of new channels. One, we're going to do the 40-year-old FUQ Boys podcast, where we're just able to talk and do podcasting and interviews and focus on that. And then I don't know the other channel if it's going to be like I have one, Black Pegasus versus the World, and I don't know if that's going to be a travel vlog or me, talking about more like trending topics or culture war topics. But I want to do a channel called Food and Fights, where it's kind of like food fights, but it's like you get like chefs or high-end like food trucks, and you try the food while we're reacting to like MMA content. And I just think that would be fun and things that I'm into. And starting from the ground up, I don't have to be like, oh, I gotta, da-da-da. And that's the other thing. That's why I stopped doing paid requests, because it's also then like people with money, in a sense, take over your channel in a weird way, because there's some people like, yo, and I just want to be spontaneous and random. And so that's what I do on my channel. I don't do paid requests. And it's interesting because I didn't realize how many people do paid requests, because like so many people hit me up, or like they'll even just send money and think that I'm going to, and so it's very interesting, and trying to balance that as well, because I don't want to do paid requests necessarily. I'm down. I like when people give me good leads. That's how I found Ren. Like I was in a live stream and someone dropped a super chat and said, check this out. Because when I first started, I was just like, I didn't really know what I wanted to do on the channel. Now I do. So, and things change. Like, I don't mind doing paid requests either. It's not a knock at people who take paid requests, da-da-da-da. I just realized at a certain point, there were only certain people getting their requests through. And I was like, you have this huge audience, and I was just like, there has to be a way to, do this a little differently. And then also, like, sometimes I'm reacting to stuff like, I'm like, I don't feel like reacting. I don't know if people watched. I don't react to that much rap on my channel.
Right.
I am a rapper who grew up only listening to rap. I don't really want to hear rap that much, to be honest.
Something else,
and
something different.
And to be real, I can't play rap in front of my kids. I will not play majority of it. Like, there's certain stuff I'll play. There's certain artists that don't go crazy and their topics are great. Cool. But, like, it's just like we're in this weird polarized time. I don't need my kids saying the N-word. I say it, but it's like I don't need that. Like, it's just I don't need that. Like, it just is what it is. I'm just being honest. Like, this is the truth. And it's funny because when hip-hop was – my parents tried to kind of keep me away from hip hop, because hip hop was kind of like the rock. Like, remember, oh, it's of the devil. I'm sure like in the 60s, people were like, don't listen to those hair bands in the 80s. And that's what hip hop was in the 90s for me. Right. And they tried to keep me away from it. But, and so I'm not like trying to shelter them, but it's just like, hey, your first formative music is going to be this. And what's crazy is reactions have helped that, because now I'm putting them in front of stuff that I either forgot about or didn't know about. And they're going to give them a palate, because we all know that hip hop is one of the most catchy things, and it's going to catch on in their life at some capacity at some point. So I'm like, hey, they don't need this right now.
Well, see, one of my strategies as a parent, and my older two kids, they're adults now, so I'm specifically focusing on my 10-year-old. It's like she's an only child, poor thing. She's totally chill. She's totally cool. She is, of course, the one that's been online the most, because that's her era. But yet I keep her. There is a big line in the sand, right? Because just because something is cool, like, okay, for example, skibbity toilet. Do I need to say anything else? Like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life. I understand it went viral. I understand, and I know
I've never even heard it, so.
Okay.
I don't even know, but I have an idea. I'm just like,
well, like stupid stuff like skibbity toilet, like the word writ, like no one cares. Why do you have to like butcher the English language? I want her to understand that there are other instruments. There's just because it's popular doesn't make it good or okay or enlightening or informative or help her grow as a person in these years that is so important. I can literally sing out, oh, I'm halfway there, and she'll start singing, oh, living on a, like all my kids do. It's a thing in my house. And it doesn't matter if they can name the artist, they can sing Bohemian Rhapsody by heart, and she's 10, and she's never actually sat and purposely heard the song. We just do that because I want her to know other stuff. Yeah. And I get that poppy songs and rap songs are cool. My favorite, I don't mind some of the most popular like rap songs, just take out the vocals.
Yeah. You know what?
The words, not the vocals, the words. Like, make it in a different language so that I don't have to know what they're talking about, and I will rock out to it. It's the moment that I realize what they're saying in the subject matter, and I'm like, I'm out.
I do this thing in my reactions where I say, this makes the playlist, this doesn't, this is why, makes the forever playlist, this is the reason why. And I want to be very clear here, because this is not a shot at rap. And I kind of want to take a couple steps back, because doing these reactions, I started seeing how much degradation is in rock, you know, with like, I was like, oh, like Billy Idol, Rebel Yell, like, you know, White Snake, as everyone's trying to bang chicks, like AC/DC, like, I'm like, oh, yo, Thunder, she was thunderstruck. I mean, oh, what does that mean, AC/DC? Yo, like, the innuendos are there. Like, I'm not playing, you know, me personally, there's going to be a moment in time where it's like, yo, my kids can, you know, check this out. But I shelter them to it, because some people are like, oh, you shouldn't shelter them so much. And I'm like, look, I don't want to shelter them from experience, right? Like, when my daughter's at jiu-jitsu, and let's say she has to, like, they don't really spar as kids, but let's say she has to go up against a boy. I know a lot of times how that's going to end up, but she does need to go through that experience, understand these things, you know. But the programming, music is programming, television is programming. Yes, you need to shelter them from those things, because you're the adult who understands the programming and they don't. And then when they're old enough to so your goal as a parent, in my opinion, is to get your children to a place where they can think for themselves in a balanced manner. If you can get your children to that place, you've done your job, and then they make decisions for themselves. And some of those, even in a balanced perspective, they're going to make decisions you don't agree with, but that's fine and nice. You know, at least you help give them an even playing field and a foundation. And when I say the stuff about rap, I'm talking about more current and pop music rap, because I personally think rap music and hip-hop was hijacked by Central Intelligence agencies at some capacity, and there's a reason it sounds and does the things it does in this particular moment. But there's a lot of good rap out there. There's a lot of good rock, and I just believe that the popular music has been controlled for a reason, and it's all programming. And you see how music has went from, like, wholesome, traditional, like Patsy Cline, like, this song's amazing, like, you know, Motown, we can actually be in love, and then now it's Toot It and Boot It. It's like, oh, this is, so, you know, I'm a little bit of a traditionalist, but I'm kind of a hypocrite because I've lived a wild life as well, so it is what it is. But, you know, I'm not going to allow that, like, if I'm going to raise my kids, they're going to be raised. And I got lucky because I was raised in a two-parent household. My parents were pretty hardcore Christian. We listened to a lot of gospel music, so I have this unique perspective on how I see things. And, I'm not, like, super hardcore Christian, you know, but I still have those traditional values and fundamentals within me, and I just try to balance them out. But, I think the goal for all parents, because you don't have to be Christian, you don't have to be an atheist, to be like, yo, try to get your children to have common sense, think logically, you know, find that middle ground, and they'll get there.
No, I completely agree. I think it's 100% hands down the building of that foundation, the ability to read a room, to know when is the right time to speak and when is the right time. Like, who was, for example, how do I explain this? So my 10-year-old will come home or get off Roblox or something, and she says, Mom, there was these mean people on Roblox, and they were, like, painting over my stuff with BLM. And she's like, I think I know what that means. They asked me, well, don't you know what it means? She's like, not really. And they banned her. And she's like, Mom, why is it that they can ban me for that and paint over my stuff and it's okay? So then that opens that discussion where I can help her shape her asking questions that aren't popular, because you can't go ask that in public because people, people are the mob mentality. There's certain things that you can discuss with your parents. It should be a safe place to be able to ask these questions, to establish her moral ground, so that she has, like, to help her establish those lines of what is acceptable and not acceptable. And wherever you fall, as long as it doesn't go like, murder and nasty behavior, like, you know what I'm saying. I think those foundations are what a family is here for. And I once had, and he doesn't watch anyway, my son, when he's first about to start college, he was in debate. And he says to me, it was the most shook I've ever been in my entire life when he said this. He said, because I said, oh, no, the school is for ABCs, 1, 2, 3s. Stop trying to, like, teach this, and this. That's for the community. That's for the family. That's for, your home space. And he says, no. He's like parents, and this, he was 17, 18 at the time. Parents provide structure. A roof is what he meant. A roof, food, clothes, and then send them to school so they can learn what they need to know to be functional people in society. He's like, if you don't like what they're teaching in school, that's what legislation is for. They know what's best. And I'm like, well, mind you, he's lived with his father since he was 11. So that's where that comes from. See, that to me shocked me to no end, because I'm like, to rely on, school versus family, to me makes me sad. People send their kids to school to be taught, to be babysat, and they just kind of step back and say, well, send my kid home with knowledge and a good conscience and a nice person. And they wonder why it's not happening.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I totally disagree with that take from him. School is only, and this is what's crazy. I grew up when we pledge allegiance to the flag, and I believe the Bible was still in the school at some capacity. And I believe in that, and I think that's fine and nice. However, when we start having these issues where they want to introduce like these pretty raunchy books to like explain certain things, I'm okay with this. And some people in my Christian corner would get mad at me. I'm okay with taking the Bible and I'm not okay with taking the flag out, but I'm okay with taking the Bible out as long as you don't put all this other nonsense. Just keep it strict, reading, writing, arithmetic, science, not all this extra, like my buddy, Don, who's my buddy on this show. Like, there's no American flags in his son's Denver school, only rainbow flags and BLM flags. And I'm just like, the only reason, and the only reason a rainbow flag exists, the only reason a BLM flag exists is because the foundation of America, the American flag, and this is no disrespect to the American flag, so hear me out. The American flag is the original rainbow flag. Only because they say the rainbow flag's all inclusive. No. The American flag represents the people, freedom and justice for all, not one color, Yeah. Now, things in our history, we might have fumbled the ball, right? The human experience, humans aren't perfect. Do y'all remember that? But the concept of America, people try to peg the concept of America to the government and humans. That's just like going to a church, a pastor's doing meth, he's sleeping with the congregation, he's stealing from the offering plate. That has nothing to do with God. Nothing to do with God.
You must have been to my ex-husband's family's town in rural Florida.
I think it happens more than we'd like to admit as believers, but it's just human experience. It's like it's like getting upset at politicians for doing the same thing, and it's like people will hold the preacher, police, everyone to this higher standard and just forget that we're human and there's bad apples, and then want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. Again, school, pharmaceuticals, even the military, at a sense, is an institution. And one of the people who tip my hat to everyone who served for this country, I always thank them for their service. I'm grateful to them. And I'll never, ever turn my back and be like the people, spit on people because they came back from the Vietnam War because it wasn't their fault. It's like y'all are these people went to fight for what they thought was our freedom. And, the reality is the government sends our men and women of the service to places that, a lot of times they don't need to be or for certain interests.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they're wearing that uniform for us. And, yeah, man, it's very simple to me that we're homeschooling. So even when my wife did have a job, we set it up where her job was she babysitted a few kids in our house, so she would be able to homeschool my daughter and my other daughter now. But it's just like, look, this is what's interesting because I'm pretty masculine dude in a sense. And like sometimes I agree with stuff that people don't agree in the manosphere, the red pill space with like the Andrew Tates, the Fresh and Fits, and it triggers people. But I'm also very balanced. And one of the things I don't think they talk about enough is the importance of when a woman is raising kids, they're literally curating society. And I don't want the school system curating society because look at our society, people. The mental health is off the rails, right? And that's not just because of schools. It's a bunch of other factors. But everything for children has gotten worse. The rates of their health, everything, every metric, we're living as a sicker society. So, okay, this is what happens when you give your kids to the school system, to the secular system, to the pharmaceutical system. You can literally go rank kids from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s to the kids from 90s, 2000s, and now and see a huge difference. And then be like, okay, these are things I think I might want to adjust. And me being able to see those things, that's what I try to do. Now, I can't safeguard them from the things outside of my house, things that I didn't think my kids would see that I could shelter them from. This is just everywhere now. And this is, again, because of society. And there's things that I don't agree with, but at the same time, if people are being, respectful, I don't care. I don't care what other people do in that sense, as long as it's respectful. You know what I'm saying? So
Of course.
it is what it is. They got their maker to meet. That's the one thing. Like, I have some hardcore Christian friends and some Christian rappers that I listen to that are anti-boom baye, a lot of stuff. Where I'm like, that's a pretty gangster take, and I agree with the sentiment. But I don't agree with me stating it and pointing the finger because I'm not the judge. I'm not the creator. And, now there's certain lines you draw where it's like, hey, you're crossing this line and this affects other people, my kids, my this, that. And that's when I stand up as a man. But just, being like, yo, da-da-da-da. I'm just like, you, look, man, that's not my job, bro. I'm not, I don't have the gavel. It's not my job. So, I try to balance it out that way. And some people are like, oh, you're soft. This is why shit has gotten out of hand. But I'm just like, yo, I have American values too. And a lot of those values come with freedom, this concept of being independent and freedom. And I believe in those as well, as much as I do the principles and other things that I cherish and value. So
No, I get that. I'm just out of curiosity, does the growth that I know the answer is going to be yes in some capacity, but I think that you'll understand what I'm asking in a second. The growth that you've come through when it comes to, let's say, diving into different types of content or seeing things from a different perspective, that I'm not saying necessarily from like early 2000s to now, as more as like from 2020 to now. Has it changed your take on how you handle stuff like, promoting and things of that nature, or, putting on concerts and things of that nature? Because I think you still do that, right?
yeah,
Okay.
I do still throw concerts.
Does it affect how you, now that you kind of have honed your perspective a little bit and, I'm sure that your take has changed on some things, but not everything, or clarified some things. Does that affect, like, hey, you know what? I've decided that at this point, I'm no longer going to tolerate or accept, or I will open my options up to something that you never thought you would?
I've been put in a tough situation with some things. How do I want to address it? During 2020, I was throwing concerts, and I had to make a decision to throw concerts during the nonsense so that I could feed my family.
Right.
And it was tough because I was sold a certain narrative that fast forward, we found out that narrative was incorrect on many different levels and basis. And I followed guidelines to make certain things happen. For example, when I was throwing shows, I had a venue who was willing to work with me because they felt the same way. And I had to turn the venue into a restaurant because they opened up restaurants before they did venues, to be able to have these events, which make it. There was just moments where I started to see through the mist because restaurants were open. Even going to the store, what happened was because people couldn't go anywhere else, Walmart looked like the club. You're like, what? Like, are people going to start twerking in here? Like, this is crazy how many people are in here. And you were still having the same outcomes. So certain things were sold to us. I had to see through the dirt faster than others so I could make a decision about my business, because the first thing is people's health was first. Like, I'm not trying to compromise people because I need to feed my family. But once I saw through the dirt, okay, I came up with a game plan. Okay. Well, long story short, this ostracized me from the industry. A lot of big promoters, a lot of people who were even my friends, were saying things, and they might not say my name, but I was the only one throwing events, so you knew it was about you. Right. And it was tough. There was a couple people I think of off the top of my mind. It still hurts me to this day. And we still have somewhat of a relationship, but I truly, regardless of what way they steer ideologically, I actually have genuine love for them. They might not even know it, but I actually, I feel a little heartbroken on some of the relationships I lost at that point. And what happened was it made me tougher. And that even me mentioning Trump during this interview, at that time I was scared to mention certain things because I was already starting to get ostracized for seeing things and then saying I felt a certain way. And because that narrative would kind of coincide with the right's narrative, I wasn't on the right at that point. But just because I was like, hey, man, we should be able to open up. Why are you guys really want to shut down the full economy? You don't think inflation's going to be crazy 4 years down the line? Like, really? Just for saying that, now I'm a right-wing blah, blah. And, I got ostracized. But it made me tougher, and that's why I'm not scared to speak out now, and I don't give a F. But there is a line, because this is the thing. If you're a king, if you're a general, you will have to go – not general, but if you're a king, at some point you will have to go to war. You can't go to war without a war chest. And even seeing what they're doing to some of these billionaires in the courtroom, you realize even billions isn't enough. So you have to be strategic. And going out right now, I'm not a freaking politician. I'm not running for Congress. I'm not a Senate. I just want to see a better place and a better planet for my child. So sometimes it doesn't make sense to speak all of, let's say, my political views or ideologies if it's going to affect how I earn. But at the same time, as a man, I think you have to stand on your principles at some point too, because then it's just like, bro, like, it's a hard, because like I have an honor code. So I'm not trying to disobey that honor code by chasing money. So I'm like, again, I'm trying to find the balance to create a revenue stream. Not get, because I don't know if you know, I almost got banned from YouTube during 2020. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah. So I almost got banned from YouTube. That's why this plaque is from actually eBay, because they wouldn't give me my plaque. There's a bunch of stuff, but yeah, I almost got banned from YouTube. I'm sure I probably have like a little red listing. And so, yeah. And I remember I did an interview with someone, and after the interview, they got a strike. That's how much hot water I was in at that time. So, yeah, and I'm not talking about copyright strikes. I'm talking about I got community guideline strikes because I was trying to speak out on things that were going on in 2020.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, like I've went through a lot. And so now I know the rules. And I'm like, if I'm going to be on YouTube, I'm going to abide by the rules. That's just it. I get it. And I'm just going to try to crush in my realm. And I slip in some of my, people kind of get me, but they kind of don't. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're really paying attention, you're like, oh, I kind of get P. But if you're not paying attention, you're just like, oh, this is fun. He's such a fun dude. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to entertain people and help them get through this dramatic, because this time is somewhat dramatic. When I go to the gas station, when I go to the grocery store, I'm like, yeah, this is wild, and other people are dealing with this, and they might even be having more of a hard time than I am. So I'm not here to be political. At one point, I thought politics was going to help us get to a different place. I realized it's not, and I'm here to entertain, make people feel good, and I'm still going to have my own values, and I'm going to shoot for those. But also, I don't even think, politics is going to get the values that I want, because like even some of the people that I might gravitate to politically, when it comes to like my traditional values, they're willing to bend on certain things that I might not willing to be bend on. So again, it's just a balance, and it's just like, yo, man, I try to meet people in the middle and have empathy, compassion. I'm sorry because I'm ranting, but I want to touch on this. And I want to touch on this, and you said it. Your child, I don't know what Roblox is. I have an idea, video games, people come in. But the fact that someone could be mean to your child and then spray paint BLM over their stuff, I'm in a very unique position because obvious for people that don't know, haven't seen my wife, she's fair-skinned. My daughter is fair-skinned. She does not look black. Let's just be real. And I'm in a unique position because, we're in this place where things are so polarized that something could literally happen to my daughter because of her skin color. And look at her dad. Literally, someone could do something to her because of her skin color, and they'd be like, yes. Oh, I didn't know her dad was actually black and Mexican. Like, that's crazy. And so it's so sad to hear what you're saying, and kids go through this formative stuff. The funniest thing, we play I Spy in my car. I spy with my little eye something brown. And I'm like, this chair, this. She's like, your skin. And it's totally innocent. If you have kids, it's totally innocent. She's not even been exposed to anything racial. We laugh. But in the climate we're in, if we're in a restaurant or something, like people might, and it's just so sad that children's innocence is being stripped, and I will fight and try to shelter her from the nonsense as long as I can because it's BS. And the fact that they did that to your 10-year-old is nonsense. It's another part of the indoctrination. I am black, and they're trying to strip me of my black experience because I'm not dark enough. The same way they're trying to do Drake, like you shouldn't be allowed to say this. When the narrative suits them, they will try to strip you of your essence, and you just got to know who you are, know what you've been through, and just keep trucking because the pendulum will swing the other way, even if it takes 40 years. Like, you got to remember, I grew up, it was conservative. The conservatives, even the Democrats were conservative. What were they all doing? They were stomping on Tupac and Snoop Dogg CDs. Hip hop is bad. No, they're trying to take their freedom of speech. That's what was happening when I was a kid. Now it just flipped, and they're stomping on conservative rapper CDs, which is so crazy to think because it's just the pendulum, and it's going to go back and forth. And as I do reactions, I learn more of that because I was watching Led Zeppelin, A Whole Lot of Love. I never heard that song or seen this, and my man's damn near had an orgasm in the middle of the song. I'm like, bro, this is insane. Like I ain't heard this in rap. So like people can give everything a title, but man, humans are humans, and we just got to deal with it, But yeah, anyways, okay, that's my rant. But it really, I got scorched earth when I heard the Roblox thing. I'm like, dude, that's crazy. That's
not
crazy.
The only thing either. That's just one of them. And I'm not gonna go into that. I'm just saying that's just one that but see, the important thing take away from that for me was the way that I know that I'm doing a good job is that she came to me and she says, Mom, like I don't understand why. So she's asking questions, but instead of staying in the game and being like, what's your problem? And throwing a tantrum and, starting a fight. And she's like, she's 10. Okay. Yeah. She comes to me and says, I don't understand. She's like, I mean, I know what it means. She goes, I thought maybe they were using it for like a different, like, I can't best love or something. They were all doing hearts and stuff. So she thought maybe they were trying to use it as an abbreviation. So she was she goes, Mom, I was clarifying to make sure that I didn't get it. She says, I didn't want to get it wrong. And she's like, why are they coming at me? Why are they reporting me and trying to get me banned? Like, why are they scribbling over my stuff and chasing me around the game? And I'm like, because people are weird, honey.
Yeah.
And we had the conversation. I'm not going to discuss the conversation we had, but I had the conversation like, look, when you are in these particular spaces and gatherings of people in public, let's just say, even online public, as a white girl with red hair, there are things you just can't talk about. And it's not your business to speak on. I said, and it's not because your opinion isn't valid. It's because you're literally talking to people who don't want to hear it. I said, so it's not worth getting into the conversation unless you know the person is actually wanting to have a conversation. And so we went that direction, you know?
Yeah. So the key in this day and age is to lead by example, because the problem is, even with like the BLM thing, my problem is that it's so complex, right? The reason people feel the way they feel, they have the right to feel that way because of the history of the country. But the thing is, it's being manipulated and weaponized against them. And so like, it's like, you know, these people are being force fed all this information. And instead of trying to, you know, be more Christ-like, they want revenge. That's what's going on in this day and age. Like, you know, people want revenge because of history. And this is the other issue. Everyone from right now didn't commit the atrocities of history. No. We're all just like, we're the, I don't know if you want to say, we're the domino effect of it. So this is the thing when you're force fed all this stuff, and some things are very true and valid. And there's certain things that we can talk about. And I do think it's complicated, because this is where I struggle to have the conversation, because like, you know, there'll be right-leaning people who were like, I like P, he digests this the right way, from my commentary. Right. But me being black and Mexican, that doesn't change. Like, I feel like sometimes people will miss certain nuances in the conversation. Like, I'm not. It's like, for example, I like Larry Elder and all these guys, right? And I even like Candace Owens. But there are things that I feel like they miss sometimes. But then on the left, there's a ton of shit people miss, because like the stuff that's going on with your daughter, there's all this stuff running rampant. And I think we were actually getting to a place where things were going to be all good. And now we're at a place where it's not going to be all good. And that's the problem, because like, it's almost like you have to choose a side. And that's the problem. You know, like, I don't want to walk around and just because of my skin color, people immediately think I'm a leftist, right? Because I'm far from that. But at the same time, because I wear some pro-America shirt, I don't want people to think I'm throwing out the history of our country and not small, but complexities of things that happen in our country. And I think one of the biggest issues is people will forget that slavery was a business, right? And the right will be like, well, it was just a business. Everyone did it, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But I'm like, are you forgetting that in America, people would spit on black people and hang and do all this crazy shit, right? But at the same time in America, you did have white people marching for civil rights and all these different things, you know? And it gets complex because, you know, there's arguments that civil rights did more harm to the black family, black family than it. So there's it's very complex and nuanced. And I think I'm still learning, you know, but like, it's very unfortunate because, the mindset of people, like, you got to lead by example. You can't have a victim mindset. This goes for black, white, Mexican, whatever you are. And you got to trot through, because it's also interesting when you go with statistically, certain demographics just excel. Like, I think it's Indian, like Middle Eastern Indian and Asian, just at every statistic, they just family metrics, learning metrics, money metrics, and you know, and it's always like very similar. It's like Indian, Asian, Indian, and then like, I think it's like Jewish, and then it's like, and it's not some weird conspiracy. It's like, yo, family values and culture and tradition and the culture you have in your household helps structure these things. And so if your culture is breeding certain things, and this is my thing too, like, because I'm not here to tap dance. Like some people are, oh, you're tap dancing for the white man. And then some people are, oh, you hate white people. Like, it's so crazy when you just want to have a real conversation. I'm like, look, his complex on both sides. But if you take these things out, you know, you can just be a better human. And I just look at tribalism. It's tribalism. That's all we're seeing. Tribalism was something that helped protect you in the past, because typically people who didn't look like you could cause harm to you. Right. You know, and it's just like, look, we're in America. We're in a melting pot. We've started to figure it out, and now we're backtracking. We're backsliding. And so, yeah.
Well, I have a question, and this is something that I genuinely, this is my take on it. And for what it's worth, so I'm just curious what you think about my opinion on this. I think that one of the reasons that social media has destroyed so much and is so toxic, and I'm not talking about because people say things and they post stupid things and people do dumb things. That's not what I'm saying. That the access we now have to stuff that isn't our business. Okay, so we stop focusing on our community, our locality, our area here, and we're now concerned about something happening in England under someone's bridge. Somebody got mad that they found someone buried treasure and they won't let them keep it. Like, why is that your business? And so what's happening locally? Oh, you don't know, because you're jumping on the trend of, not you, but people jumping on the trend of commenting on things that have literally nothing to do with them, no effect on them, is frankly none of their business. And they have so much information coming from all across the world, across the country, across the state. Their locality is lost, and people aren't taking care of their communities anymore. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I mean,
so
it might be a little bit off, but I mean, I don't know. That's
no, you're onto something. Anytime you compare your life to someone else's, it's going to lead towards depression, and you're not going to be in the moment. And so this can be many things. It's like you said. It's like, people are worried about Conor McGregor cheating on his wife, and they're not even in their household. It doesn't even make any sense. And what I'm seeing, this goes across the board. Okay.
Right.
Politicians, policies, corporations, social media. Bad behavior gets incentivized. Okay. So if you're going to incentivize, let's say policy, if you're going to incentivize let's say a woman to not have a man in the household, do you think there's going to be many marriages or men in the household? Now, let's keep it real. Some of us make mistakes. There's bad men out there. There's bad women, da-da-da. But I'm saying if you incentivize it, what's going to happen? If you incentivize non-organic products or subsidize things that are unhealthy, if you incentivize war and jail and pharmaceutical, so for example, if you incentivize doctors to find cures or lead their patients to alternative measures, people are going to, be trying to heal themselves with vitamins or herbs, but that's not what's incentivized. The algorithm incentivizes people, and people naturally are driven to emotions, right? We're driven to love and hope. Like, those videos that make you cry and you share it with all your friends. You're like, this is amazing. We like that just as much as we like the car crash. But they incentivize things on the algorithm. They put certain things in front of us. And I'm not like they. I'm talking about the people who run the shit.
Right,
like it's not some weird conspiracy. There's people behind. Is the Wizard of Oz, right? Yeah. So fundamentally, I think we incentivize bad behaviors. The more we can come to terms with that and try to incentivize good behavior, that's when we will see a shift, right? Like we incentivize rehabilitation or this, because some people are lost, and I'm not saying let people out, like, look, violent stuff happens. I'm not that guy. I don't believe in utopia. I believe in balance. So, but I do think there's a shift in the Force, Luke. There's the imbalance in the Force, Luke. And like, when Star Wars becomes woke, there is the balance has been disrupted. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't, incentivize good behaviors, and we'll see a shift. And again, I don't want things to be perfect. It just be, if we could get a little more balance, we could. And everything you said is absolutely right. And it goes to that, because people aren't worried about their kids. Like, you're sitting next to your kid scrolling. I find myself, I'm like, bro, put this down, because it's like I could be hugged up on my kid, I could be talking to him, and it's addictive. It's addicting. And we all know it. There's moments where you might be in your mind like, why am I scrolling? Just get off this, and you don't stop. Mm-hmm. All of us are dealing with that, and, you know, it takes discipline. It's not easy from everything. Everything we take in is information. So, you know, just got to work at it.
Well, see, I also think that also kind of correlates with another fun thing that I think, which is, I'm going to say this in a very tactless way because it's fun. People think their opinion matters a lot more than it really does. People are told and are led to believe that people give a rat's flying whatever about what they have to say. And it's funny to me because I know for a fact that people post things specifically for engagement. They will post controversial, something that you're going to say in the comments. No, that's not true. That's not right. Because any engagement is engagement. It's just like a dislike is just as valuable as a like. Somebody is clicking on your content. That's all that matters. But then people, they're able to put their opinion. They're able to comment and say, you suck, you have a weird face, your eyes crossed. Like, they can say all these things and no one stops them. There's no consequences. I'm not saying that you should be able to say what you want. I'm saying the fact is that being purposefully hateful or saying things, just because you can say something doesn't mean you should. And people have this thing where they feel like everyone has to listen to their opinion. And if you don't listen, they get angry. Just like in your comments, I'm sure you get it, where someone is like, well, you're wrong, and this is why, and this is my opinion. You're like, well, that's your opinion, you know. And they're like, oh, how dare you not take what I say, apply it to your life, twist the way that you're thinking, and learn from my expertise where I'm saying something dumb as a sack of rocks. Like, you know? Yeah. People are told and led to believe, our children are led to believe that everyone asked. Because I say to my kids all the time, who asked you? Yeah. Yeah. And people are upset they're not allowed to say that anymore. Everyone's allowed to say whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want, no matter what the situation. And I think that is very damaging to not be able to read the room, you know?
Yeah, well, and that comes with, again, a society that's being curated improperly by the school system, by social media, by pharmaceuticals, because we all have a voice. And at some capacity, we all deserve to be heard. But it's like getting our opinions to a point, like what we're talking about is everyone gets to put their opinion out there, and we're getting to see the level of people's, you know, ignorance, I guess you could say, a bunch of different things. And the fact that attention is the new currency, these are things that we're dealing with that we never had to deal with before. I think there's pros and cons to it because, you know, at one point it's like we only get to hear the ideas of our leaders who, you know, sometimes don't have our best interest in mind. Sometimes they do. And now you get to hear, you know, thoughts from other people. But the comment section is toxic. And that's what you're referring to. Absolutely. And as a human, you have to be able to disconnect from that. And I always just tell people, go outside. Like, I live in a pretty cool neighborhood, and it is hilarious because it's like you walk down the street, you see a Ukraine flag, so you're like, oh, they probably steer left. But then you see an American flag, or sometimes I'll see even I can't even say that word. Let's say Q flag. I'm like, oh, I know which way they go. Like, but everyone waves, and it's just like, hey, like if you take the time to look at someone in their eyes and wave and say, hey, how you doing? Hope you have a good day. Everyone's cool. But on the internet, you think we're marching into a civil war right now. Yes. And I'm like, yo, when you walk outside, when you go to the grocery store, the country is divided 50-50. They're always like, no, the popular vote wanted this and that and blah, blah. The country is literally 50-50, and it swings 51, 49, 48, da-da-da. Yes. Literally is half Republican, half Democrat, couple independents. That's just what our country is. So when you go into a freaking packed grocery store, half the people might think like you, the other half might, and then the other half is a little nuanced. This is how it is everywhere. But if you get online, it's like, oh, yeah, it's time to go to the gallows. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. It really is. That's why I recommend people, Go outside, get some sunlight, talk to people, look at them in their eyes, be respectful, have some cool communities, and just try to rise above. Because I remember during the Rona being online and seeing things and then going to the grocery store and being like, yeah, some of this stuff is wild and weird, but like we're still out here. You know, I was throwing concerts, nothing was happening. We're like, they're saying all this on the news, but we just had a 200-person concert. Nothing happened. Interesting, you know? So it's just funny how things work out. But yeah, absolutely. And again, bad behaviors get incentivized. And so when they get incentivized, for example, when someone leaves a bad comment, I'm prone to this. It's so easy to just gloss over the 1,000 praises and respond to the bad comment. So what happened? You just incentivized bad behavior, because then they're going to come back and do some boombaye. So yeah, that's why I just be kicking it. Like, I'm just like, you know, it is what it is.
Now, and I appreciate you having these conversations with me, because I'm pretty open about what I talk about, and any discussion, whatever happens, and I try not to steer anyone in any type of direction. But you have such a unique take, and you're so well articulated. You've put a lot of thought into what you say, and that means a lot to me as a listener and as a conversationalist. I prefer that. That makes, you know, it gives me an opportunity to really think about what you're saying, and I appreciate that. And I hope everyone else does too, because it's not a skill that people really use anymore.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Like, just what you do and your perspective. And it has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with your past. It has nothing to do with anything. It's just, when I think of you as a person, from what I know of you, the first thing that comes to mind is, wah. That's what comes to mind.
No doubt.
The second thing is that you're a good dad.
Yeah, I try my hard. Yeah, let's just say I am.
I don't know your
no
family.
trying.
I don't
I am.
know your children personally, but first, I consider myself a decent judge of character, and I get that vibe that you're just like, when it comes to being a father, like that is everything to you, and you wouldn't have even had to say that to me for me to believe that. So I don't know. I just really respect you, and
Thank
my
you.
mom likes you. So there.
Hey, Mom. Hi, Mom, again. I really prioritize my relationship with my kids, because I never really had like the relationship I wanted to have with my dad. And now that I'm older, we're starting to get there. He was just, you know, that machismo, like didn't talk much, didn't hug you, didn't really say I love you. And I'm just, because of that, life experience has helped me a lot in the conversations, because I'm not super well read, but my experience, like being a mixed kid, right? Not really fitting in with black or white. And then like being in a military family where we're always around different, like I grew up with, so what I noticed in America, which I didn't realize until these latter years, was that America's still like, there's white communities, black communities, Asian communities. You see it in the city more prevalent. It's like Little Havana, Chinatown, da-da-da-da. But I was in a military family, and military mother effers stick together, and it's all mixed up. So that's what I grew up around. And so that's how I interpret life. And I definitely grew up watching Roots, MLK. And so naturally I steered progressive and left, but in a time when progressive left doesn't mean what it means now. Like now it's
Right.
like it's different. So I have an understanding of the struggle, the feelings that minorities have. But then as I've gotten mature, also I've traveled the world. I've been to China, I've been to Colombia, Mexico, Jamaica, frickin' all of Canada, all of Europe, all of America, having interactions with people and then seeing how things, I might not be a historian, but seeing how the world really works, going to China and only seeing Chinese people. And then people be like, you know, have a problem with the melting pot, understanding how, oh, this is how the world worked. There was just groups of people that were just one thing.
Yeah.
Having all these different experiences help curate, and then having children. So I'm getting closer to my final form and having just a better understanding of the human experience. But I just try to express that when I speak. It's not like, you know, it sucks when if you say a name like Biden or Trump, that people literally just will not even listen to your wisdom or experience. And that's what I am not. Because like when I go to the internet, I will listen to Andrew Tate, but I'll also listen to like ABBA and Preach and Destiny. And I just listen to a bunch of stuff. I listen to Candace Owens and Tucker, but then I'll go listen to the Young Turks. And essentially because I do that, I'm starting to notice people want similar things. They just have a different road to get there.
Yes.
And now sometimes we might not agree with that road, but most people want peace, prosperity, and a place for their future, which is their children. Most people. Yeah, that's what you probably get from me. It's just a culmination of a lot of, the one thing I don't know if I've talked about this, but I'm going to just, before we get off, pause. Well, I guess that's not pause, but whatever. Okay. I'm mixed, right? I'm black and Mexican, but from my Mexican side, I have a little Irish, French, native, like it's very mixed up. But I always just grew up like that was kind of, I'm black and Mexican, right? But people might not really know this, but my mother got pretty much ostracized from her family for dating and then marrying a black man. And so like I have all these unique things that I grew up with, things that I saw, some things that I won't even say publicly because it's like, wow, I can't believe that happened, because people change and grow. And I've seen a lot of my mother's side of the family grow. And how did that happen? Because my father, a good black man, led by example. Even all the scrutiny and the rolling of the eyes. And same here. I go out to eat with my wife, and sometimes I get the rolling of the eyes, or But then I also realized, that's that leftist thinking. What if they're having a conversation like you're always just like encapsulated in the, I look different. My wife looks different than she should, blah, blah, blah. You got to get outside of your mind and just be you and lead by example. Because my father led by example, there is a group of people from my mother's side of the family that look at things differently than what is sold to us. Like, all black people are like this, all white people are like this. And that's what I think exemplary people do. They break the mold, and all you can do is lead by example. So I would end with that personally, because that's probably the most important thing as a human, is to try to lead by example, and it's going to be fine. You'll figure it out.
I completely agree. I think that's the best impact you can. If you can influence someone to want to think a little bit differently, or even to dive into how it is that you are a positive person, a knowledgeable person, how you are intelligent about how you approach things. If you can get even just a couple people to sit there and stop for even a moment and kind of rethink even one subject, it could affect lives, like a ripple effect, and the ability to change people's perspectives. I'm not saying change their opinions. I'm saying just help them understand a better way to approach things that doesn't necessarily need an end statement like, you have to agree or disagree. Like, it doesn't need a motto, just the discussion and how to form it and talk to each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really help people. And I don't know. I hope that, all of us can influence people with what opportunities that we have to have discussions and show, look, you can talk about things that most people wouldn't talk about, and you don't have to do it in a way that is like attacking or hateful, and we don't have to talk crap, and we don't have to make it a negative thing in order to discuss any of the subjects. It also doesn't have to be a worship fest.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep, absolutely.
If one person comes away from this with a different thought process or idea, then as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy.
Hey, let's get it.
But I appreciate you taking the time. I know that you're a busy man, and I'm glad that we found time that we both weren't busy to be able to make it happen. I truly appreciate it. I'm super excited about your studio, and super congratulations on your 300,000.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, and thanks for having me. It was good. And I like having conversations. I actually like doing this more than reactions most of the time. But it's interesting having these type of conversations. It just takes a lot of I guess, repetition and consistency to get big where people are just tuning in for your conversation. But yes. Yeah, this is I like you said, we just went through an hour and 30 minutes. I probably could have done another hour just rambling because, you take in so much information. It's like we didn't even talk about artists we like, da 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 da. So maybe on the next one.
No, and that's kind of the thing, though. It goes where it goes, and any subject is welcome. Like, what setting do you use on your treadmill? I love to use that one for some reason.
No doubt.
Because, like, who asks that?
Yeah.
No, but
You.
honestly, it's good times and good talks, and I would love to have you on any time. And anytime that you get some time that you feel like jumping on with someone, I'm here, and hopefully,
Cool.
hopefully we'll do this again because most people do
And-
come back.
Yeah, no, I'm down. And thank you for your work behind the scenes. If you guys don't know, she helps the What's the Word podcast. She does a lot of valiant work from editing to all types of stuff. So thank you there as well.
No, not a problem. I appreciate it.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to say thank you for tuning into this podcast. And I know that it didn't have a crazy outro. Everybody didn't say goodbye because we kept talking for a few minutes. But if you liked what you saw, please go check out Black Pegasus. Check him out. His link is in the description below. Make sure that if you enjoyed what you saw that you come back, subscribe, hit the like button, drop a comment, help your girl out. Just a little bit, okay? It would really help me and I'd appreciate it. And thank you guys, all of you that keep coming back. And for all the people that are new, I am so happy to have you. I'm glad you made it this far. And if you ever need anything, you can reach out to me, drop a comment, hit me up on Instagram. But I will see you next time. And feel free to let me know who else you'd like to see. So have a good weekend.